and see where you're at.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to do. I mean, of course, these recommendations come from you, and you're good with these recommendations. Are there some of the recommendations in here that you're okay with, and we'll, and then if there are some that we're all good with, then we can just pull those ones to the side and just focus on the ones that that you have issues with, or if there's something that if there was minor modification to the wordage, we could do that too. So, Terry?
I more have information or opinions about marijuana usage, medical marijuana usage as a whole, and what we're attempting to do here, not necessarily on specifics, but I think that you've given a chance to others to express where they're coming from on some of these issues and why the committee brought it forward. And I think that it should be that we can not just take a straw poll, but I think that people need to know where we're coming from and why I'm coming from where I'm coming from. And I don't know how Madison feels about that.
So, so the deputy city attorney has gone through every item. Clark has talked about those as well. So, if there are any of these that you're okay with, then I don't think we really need to hash them out. But if every single one is you have an issue with, then we'll dive into it.
I think it's more philosophical to a certain degree than necessarily wanting to say. So I would like a chance to speak.
No,
in general, on the whole.
Okay, no. I'm not going to take that away from you. Obviously not. But are there some things here that you would be okay with, or you'd rather
maybe
say your general thing first, and then just so that we can keep the meeting in a timely fashion, and and we address the meat of the matter instead of just going off on things that we might already agree on. So, did you want to give like a general thing, Terry, and then we can go through this, and you can say, okay, I'm okay with 1, or I'm okay with 3, 3 point, the first bullet in 3, just so that then we can focus on those items that you really are having concerns about.
I think I need to give an overview of where I'm at and see what we can come up with that might make good.
So Madison, based upon these recommendations, you had said that you have some concerns about these other recommendations. So are there some of these recommendations that you agree with the subcommittee? And
yes.
That we can then pull those to the side?
Yes.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind sharing that with us.
Okay. So 1 is what we already addressed, correct? Item 1?
Yes.
Okay. 2 I am fine with. 3 I have issues with. Mainly bullet points 1 and 2.
Okay.
4 I am fine with, or kind of depending on these are my issues. 5 I don't have an issue with.
Okay. All right. For me, I wanted to get just some greater clarity on the delivery part of the recommendations, and I wanted us to talk a little bit more about research and development for medical marijuana, and flushing that out a little bit more. All the other items, I'm fine.
I would still like to hear I would still think it's important that Terry, because I might change my mind
No, I mean, if
before we vote on
you know,
any of these.
I have issues with every single one, then we'll just dive into all of them.
Yeah.
But if there's some that you're okay with, Terry, and say, yeah, you know what, that's fine with me, or I'm good with this as long as we address this.
Well, I'm hearing two of you. I haven't heard from you, Terry, and I assume you want to talk about your stuff, but since this is coming from the subcommittee, you know, we're recommending it, so that's really 4 votes for 1, 2, 4, and 5. The committee's okay.
But I think, I understand you're counting the votes,
Yeah.
but I think that this is information that needs to go out there. So I'd like to at least have a
Right.
moment to say something.
Yeah.
My vote might change.
So
I agree.
before you do your straw poll and make a decision
Right.
on what you've decided, I think you should hear my point of view.
Yeah, that was what I was reiterating a minute ago.
Yeah, no,
And if you want to take a vote before that, that's
we're not.
up to you.
No, I definitely want to hear what you have to say. I'm just saying from what I'm hearing, and then that really the meat and potatoes is with number 3. So,
Well,
I'm, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, no, so Terry,
okay. So these, to me, most of these are way over and above what needs to happen for medical marijuana. This is an issue that the state of California voted on to make medical marijuana legal. And I think it's important to respect the voters to a certain degree while still giving the council and the city the opportunity to make it the best kind of legislation that we can for our individual community. I don't think anybody here wants to live next to a grow house in our residential areas. That's not what we want. But I've done a lot of research on this, and I've looked at a lot of websites. I've looked at dispensary websites. I've looked at delivery websites. I've talked to medical marijuana patients. I've talked to people who have delivery, and I talk to people who grow their own occasionally and will have the occasional plants. They're all people that you and I all know. Staff knows, police department, upstanding citizens that you would never say, oh, I live next door to a drug dealer, or that have any problems with being members of the community and contributing to society. I think a lot of this is making it look like a dry county, and prohibition didn't work in the past for alcohol, and I don't think it's going to work here. Some of the items that, you know, I have take issue with, we're talking about the delivery truck for medical marijuana. We have delivery happening in town now, and it is the same as the pizza guy or the dry cleaning guy, and certainly not like the Safeway truck pulling up with your groceries that pulls up in a big truck that says Safeway, and they're unloading, you know, cases of marijuana. It is where somebody picks up the orders however they order. It's not scheduled. It's not where, just like nobody knows that at 5:45 your pizza's going to be delivered, I can rob that pizza guy at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock or whenever your medical marijuana delivery guy shows up. It's not like the whole town is waiting for the Brinks truck. It is not for local deliveries. Now, I'm not talking about something to a research site, because that's not online, but that's not what it happens with medical marijuana delivery on a local, personal, prescription level. It is casual as far as when a delivery may happen. You get a 2-hour window where they say, well, between 10 and 2, just like the cable guy. So we currently have pizza delivery, taxis, Uber, Lyft, all those are random opportunities for theft. They're all people who deal in cash. They have, pizza is a commodity that people want. I don't think we've had a problem with people breaking, waiting for the pizza delivery guy to rob them. It could be a crime of opportunity if you happen to be in the mood to rob the cab or the pizza guy, but it's not like you're laying in wait for the 5 o'clock delivery. So they sort of take offense with some of the delivery options that we keep talking about, the delivery truck that's coming. I don't see that as a real issue for the kind of businesses that we would be saying, oh, you can't get your personal prescription delivered. We can't, right now we have Uber and Lyft coming into town. We can't tell who they are particularly, and we don't regulate them, and we can't stop them from driving. They don't have permits. How would we effectively limit or enforce any non-delivery? And what is the difference if the delivery guy is driving through Brisbane and stops at our traffic light on his way to South City, that a robbery is more likely to happen than if they're driving through on their way to your neighbor's house?
I don't think these trucks really advertise.
They're
Yeah, like I'm just saying, the vehicles themselves, I don't think they really advertise like marijuana exists in here.
They aren't.
Well, I don't know if we even have any trucks out there. I think we're kind of in this no man's land.
Just
No.
carts. They're just like normal cars.
It's like me pulling up. I mean, I could be a medical marijuana delivery person, and no one would ever know who is delivering marijuana. It's not like you're a Target. It's
You're not
like you
advertising.
got the pizza delivery thing on your roof. So it's a fear that is based in fear, not in reality. Now, if, just let's say, out at Sierra Point Marina, we've been talking about development agreements that lift restrictions on certain kinds of R&D because certain people want more leadway on what they can build. This would be something that would limit that kind of research and development and would put extra conditions on any leases that we have and what people can research. It doesn't mean they're making products that are, promoting cancer, or it could be the next cure for cancer. One of the active ingredients in marijuana is THC, but they've got CBCs, CBDs. There's a lot of other components that are in what they're now making into medical marijuana. And that's why this is so cutting edge and has so many other uses besides just for your kids to get high on and to worry about them abusing drugs and being a stepping stone to other things. And I do think that a lot of what's in here is overkill because of that. People being able to grow a plant in their backyard is no different than growing tomatoes in your backyard. You would never know that your neighbor had one plant. So in my opinion, I'm happy to support an ordinance that would limit commercial grows, multiple co-op type grows. I think people should be able to have their medical marijuana, have it delivered, and grow their own. And anything less than that, I would definitely be against. And I really think that while some of our opinions are, some of the reasonings to limit some of these things are with good intentions, I definitely think it's overkill. And it's not as if giving people the opportunities to do what is, state legal is something that is detrimental to our community and is something that we should be doing. I looked at a lot of ordinances, looked on the websites about what cities have ordinances that have, a lot of them have been instigated by the fear that the League of Cities instilled into their members about how this is going to drag the community down, and how we need to plan to keep those things from happening. And many of them took while they put something on the books, it was all within reason, where, if you're a regular person with a medical card, you could grow, 2 adult plants and 6 babies, probably because you don't know if the crop's going to fail. And I don't think that that's going to put anybody at risk. I think that having anyone who's going to grow a plant have to get a license and put a sign up and that kind of thing is an attractive nuisance. And I think if it's for personal use, then it shouldn't be required to get a permit. And I think that everybody would be really surprised if they knew who in this community this ordinance, these regulations would affect. You'd be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Madison?
So I have a lot to say. I'm just going to try not to ramble, but I got a lot of thoughts. So, crimes happen all the time for all different reasons. And so, I echo what Terry has said and what Michelle has said, and in the way that I view policy, it should not be based out of fear, because that's when I think you get into a really scary place. And this is what number 3, 1 and 2 bullet points, that's where I hear that this is coming from. And I respect our police department, and I have faith in them. But at the same time, to play devil's advocate, they also are required to uphold federal law. So, this is an interesting thing going on here when state law is allowing. We're talking about allowing medical marijuana, but federally, it's not something that there's this conflict, and so. I think it's really important to note that there was one instance of having a co-op situation that fell in the loophole. Grow houses and grow-ups are going to happen anywhere. So I don't see that us allowing for someone to have cultivation of their own marijuana creating a major risk for us being a destination to have people who are finding the loophole. And in fact, I would actually challenge that Brisbane is really kind of a terrible location for a grow house. Let's be real. We all know each other. We're very nosy. We keep an eye on our neighbors. We report suspicious activity. Our houses are very close together. When you have major grow houses, they're in desolate areas. That's why people they're in counties like Humboldt County and things like that, where that's where those things can happen more successfully. So, of course, there are going to be grow houses everywhere, but I don't see that we're a destination for that. And I also know Brisbane citizens and Brisbane police to be very vocal if they see something, and also watchful of what's going on in their neighborhood. So I challenge that idea that we're going to be a destination for people, using this to grow lots of marijuana in their own home. So also the whole caregiver thing with delivery, I just think about all the people in this community that I know that their lives would be so impacted. And I am not willing to pass something that I absolutely 100% know for a fact will impact their quality of life out of fear that a delivery truck may at some point get robbed. Because I trust our police department to do a really thorough investigation if that ever happens and bring people to justice, like I know that they're capable of. So, and I, somebody who's in a situation where they're needing marijuana and they're needing this to be brought to them, these are people who are suffering. And I'm not going to make their life any harder. I'm not. And I think that delivery should be allowed. And we need to allow people to be able to grow their own medical marijuana if they need it, according to what the state guidelines are. Most people don't have caregivers. So it's not like this is something where we say, 95% of people with medical marijuana cards have caregivers. So if we got rid of delivery service and we got rid of allowing them to grow medical marijuana within their homes or in their gardens, that, most of these people would easily have access to it still because the majority of them have caregivers. I don't see that being the case here. Brisbane is fairly isolated from a lot of where these dispensaries are. So it's not like they can easily walk somewhere to get it if they don't have a caregiver or take public transportation. And if you are ill and you are suffering, that is a considerable hardship. And especially if you're needing it very consistently, that's many trips that you're going to need to make. So that's just where I'm coming from. We can have crimes in all different areas, but I am not in favor of passing something out of fear right now when I don't see a major concern. And so this is directed with point 3, bullets 1 and 2 is where I really have an issue. That's all I have to say right now.
Okay. I have a question for Commander Meisner. So in regards to, let's see. Let's start with, with the personal use of growing your own medical marijuana. So, if we didn't have this particular ordinance in place, and someone said, "Hey, I think someone's growing, medical marijuana," does that then keep you from being able to investigate that particular concern that someone has raised? Or, you're always, like with the ban on smoking in multi-unit buildings, the discussion was, well, hey, if someone called the police department and say, hey, there's smoke in my unit, and if we didn't have the ordinance in place, there wouldn't be anything you could do. Whereas if someone was playing the music really loud, and we have an ordinance that restricts, playing the music loud. So, so my thing is, to allow you to do your job properly, how does, having this in place enable you to do that?
In terms of the subcommittee's recommendations, it's certainly cleaner and easier to have a flat ban straight across the board, at least at this time. Certainly we're in a little uncharted waters and wondering what the state's going to come up with in terms of their regulating this new legislation. And I think that's also a concern of ours, because in existing law, they haven't done a real comprehensive job in developing enforceable, understandable regulations. So at this stage in the game, it would be best for us to have the flat ban.
Would it be difficult for the police department to regulate the personal growing of medical marijuana?
I think realistically, yes. I think the comparison to the smoking issue is probably a fair one. What people do in the privacy of their own home is we don't invade people's privacy in people's home without due process. And, if someone's growing a small amount in their house and, who's going to know and who's going to complain? We're not going to bust in anybody's door or make an issue of it unless it becomes an issue that we need to address.
Can I have a follow-up question? Sure. Under the current regulations, if I have a plant in my backyard that I'm growing, what are the consequences if I have a medical marijuana card?
Well, you are allowed to grow a certain amount of plants under the current law.
Okay. And if we pass this where no medical marijuana plants are allowed, and I have a medical marijuana card and I have a plant, what would be the penalties?
That's a good question.
If I may, state law would not allow criminal sanctions for cultivating marijuana. However, the ban, if you choose to adopt a ban, the vehicle for doing that would be through your zoning ordinance. So then you would be in the position of having someone violating the zoning ordinance. Perhaps we would deal with that through an abatement proceeding. If the abatement proceeding, if the person then did not cooperate, there could then be, if you have the legislation in place, a criminal fine associated with failure to abate. But you cannot, a city cannot make criminal cultivating a medical marijuana. That issue has been preempted by state law.
Okay.
So it would essentially be a zoning violation you would have. It wouldn't be a misdemeanor.
All right. And then, Commander Meisner, in regards to the deliveries of medical marijuana, so can people deliver the medical marijuana in their cars? Do they need to have signed? Do they need to have some kind of license? What's the process right now? Or
Well, currently, I'm not aware of any regulation as such that concerns delivery.
So the new state law is in effect, but the licenses haven't been issued. So once the state starts issuing licenses, delivery services are defined differently than transportation services or distribution. Delivery, and that's what you've been talking about here, has to do with how the product gets from the retailer to the end user, or from the retailer to a testing facility. The delivery services would, I apologize, I have lost track of your question in the middle of answering.
so can someone who, I guess, gets one of these licenses, do they need to let it be known that this is what they're doing for their work, or
So we don't have the regulations in place that will be associated with a delivery license. There is a state agency that was created that will promulgate the regulations to put that in place.
Okay.
However, the only businesses that can be licensed by the state to provide delivery services are dispensaries. Okay. So a dispensary would have to get not only a dispensary license, but a delivery license in order to provide deliveries.
All right, and then this is for the subcommittee. So the recommendation to not allow the deliveries is really based on the state not providing clear guidelines as such right now, and thus having the ban in place is, you're just kind of covering all your bases until the state provides clearer guidelines.
Yeah, well, as I indicated, for me, I was ambivalent at first about that and really didn't care so much about delivery until I got the feedback from Commander Meisner, kind of pulled me the other way. So, and that was what he iterated. The state doesn't really have these specified guidelines yet.
Yeah, and one of the things we also talked about in the subcommittee was, why would, patients who need medical marijuana be treated differently than patients who need narcotics or other forms of pain relief? Why would they get sort of, special treatment for delivery, whereas other patients, would have to go through any other normal means of getting their medication?
But Kaiser can deliver my meds to my house.
What was that?
I mean, Kaiser can mail me my meds to my house.
All my
can get-
medications come in the mail, and
Not medications that are written on triplicate script. Vicodin and
Narcotics.
Percocet and stuff like that. You have to go to the pharmacy and pick it up.
on triplicate scripts, but medical marijuana is not that kind of script.
Right.
It's probably less strong than the Ambien I take to go to bed at night. And that comes in the mail.
Lori?
So that was our thinking on the delivery, that, that patients needing pain relief for, medical, be it medical marijuana or narcotics, really should be treated the same way. And we thought that the delivery service, coupled with the potential crime issue, made it seem like patients seeking this type of relief would be getting some sort of, special treatment, as opposed to, what the rules are for any other type of care.
Okay.
I assume Ready Wheels will take you to the neighborhood pharmacy, but they're probably not going to take you to the neighborhood medical dispensary.
But
If I could.
I think it's a crime that we're looking at a crime just like banning pizza delivery guys because they carry cash.
Clark?
Yeah, I mean, if, at least what I'm hearing, the feedback is that really the crux of the issue is more with the medical marijuana cultivation and use for personal use and the delivery of it, but the commercially grown and stuff like that, we seem, and Terry, if I heard you right, you're okay with banning commercially grown and all that?
In our residential areas, I think
Yeah.
commercially grown marijuana shouldn't
How
shouldn't
about-
happen.
Yeah,
About
we just passed
dispensaries.
that resolution to acknowledge what we already
Well,
have.
what I'm saying is really 1, 2, 4, and 5 kind of fall in that category.
dispensaries and
Bullet points, under item 3, bullet points 3 and 4 really kind of dovetail into number 4, which is marijuana-related businesses, and you really wouldn't need that ordinance if we don't allow commercially grown marijuana. So, I mean, if it banned commercially grown marijuana, period, I mean, that would be where we would focus, to have the planning commission focus on drafting the ordinance along with staff. But I guess, maybe Terry, I wasn't clear on where you were with dispensaries in Brisbane.
Well, just like vaping rooms and other things, we really don't have, in my opinion, the population that's going to support anybody wanting to come in do a medical marijuana dispensary here. That may change when it becomes recreational, or if it becomes recreational. And I think that that's a separate issue. It may be that, anybody who can sell liquor is going to be able to sell medical marijuana recreationally once that happens, if it happens. And looking at what's happened in Oregon and Washington, that's coming down the road. And it is going to be, again, where once and if that happens, there's going to be a line in the sand where we're going to have dry counties or dry cities when it comes to that. And that's not so much of my issue here, but I do feel that we are trying to legislate for things that may or may not happen and for crimes that may or may not happen. And it's just like saying that there's a potential risk of theft. Would that mean that you're not gonna allow a diamond store, a jewelry store, because they have expensive stuff and they might get
Or a
robbed.
bank.
So I don't have a problem with saying that we can't have a medical marijuana dispensary, because I think it's moot.
Right.
Okay,
But I think most of what these recommendations are taking us down a slippery slope of fear-mongering.
I want to just tie back and kind of rebuttal what Lori said about the delivery service in terms of narcotics, other sorts of narcotics that can't get delivered. For me, just that reasoning doesn't make a lot of sense because, that's really, I think, for the state to determine. And they've determined right now that delivery services for medical marijuana are allowed and delivery services for other sorts of narcotics aren't. And I don't think we're in the position to, and to determine who, to take that away and make somebody's life more difficult when they're currently being allowed to do that. I think that's something that happens at the state level. And so to use that rationalization, like more the fear of theft, I can kind of understand that, although I disagree. But in terms of trying to level the playing field, that's making people's lives more difficult when it doesn't need to be, just so we can say, oh, well, everyone else doesn't get their drugs delivered to them, so you don't either. That I don't agree with that.
So, Teresa, in regards to the delivery, so you were talking about the licenses. So the state has allowed delivery to happen, but delivery hasn't happened because the licenses have not been issued.
So this legislation was recently passed in the last few months. And there's a certain amount of infrastructure that has to be set up on the state level before the state is in a position to actually issue the licenses. The state has announced informally that it expects to start issuing licenses for medical marijuana-related businesses in the approximate January 2018 timeframe. So at the moment, it's on the books. This is the new law. It took effect at the first of the year, but the licenses aren't actually going to be issued for, probably at least 18 months.
Okay, so then does that mean that someone can go into the business of delivering without the license, or there are no deliveries yet until a license has been issued?
Dispensaries.
Well, you can go to a dispensary, but I'm talking about...
Dispensary can deliver.
Oh, a dispensary can deliver.
Under the new state law, only a
Okay.
dispensary can deliver.
Okay, and they can do that right now.
Right now, dispensaries do deliver. I don't know whether there are others who aren't dispensaries that are in the business, and whether there's some law currently right now that would preclude that. But under the new law, that would, once the state starts issuing licenses, that only dispensaries can deliver.
Okay, and then these dispensaries, they don't have to display their business name on the delivery vehicle.
Well, as I mentioned, the regulations are not in effect. Certainly, the state law doesn't require that. I think.
Go ahead.
Pardon?
Continue, Teresa.
I'm sorry.
There are regulations that will be adopted to regulate delivery services, and the intention of that is, at least in part, to help with concerns about alleviating potential for crime. And I think that is one of the reasons why the legislature was so clear about making sure that regulations would be adopted. However, again, we're too early in the process, and we don't know what regulations will be adopted at this point.
Okay. All right, Taryn.
So, the deliveries that I have seen, and from what the people that I've talked to, are all in a personal vehicle, unmarked, just with the, from the dispensary, where somebody is making a personal delivery. It is less conspicuous than the pizza delivery guy.
It's really, I think the fear of theft is from the person who ordered the delivery. They ordered the marijuana to come to them. Then they robbed the person who brought the marijuana to them for their money and all their marijuana. I don't think the risk is necessarily they're a lame duck and somebody nearby was like, oh my gosh, I stumbled upon a jackpot here and I'm going to rob this car full of marijuana. It's more that the person who ordered the marijuana is then probably robbing the delivery person, not like it's.
Well, that's speculation.
No, I see, because they're not advertised, so how would you know, like, that you wouldn't? So it's the people who are ordering the delivery that know what's coming to them.
Well, and the only person who is,
But,
best way to put this, it's not like they load up the car with a variety pack and.
You tell them what you want in advance.
The only person that can order for a delivery is a member of the co-op of the dispensary. So if you want to order marijuana from a dispensary, you have to sign up with the dispensary, give them your prescription.
State your
And
license.
once you're an established patient, you can call and have your medication delivered. Once they have your prescription on file.
Clark?
well, I mean, just, I guess at risk of moving this along, we're in the late hour, it's 10:20, and I'm hearing what you guys are saying, because I think you probably made a pretty passionate argument.
Thank you.
I'm okay to not do a zoning text with those 2 bullet points with regards to medical marijuana for the personal use and the delivery.
Well, I just,
But I'd like-
I mean, well, so on the personal growing, I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah.
Because I think it opens the door to, there's too much room for abuse. Granted, yes, there are probably some folks who do the right thing, and probably most of them do the right thing, and they have just a small amount. Is it, very likely that they're going to be, arrested? I don't think so. I mean, well, they couldn't be arrested because the state allows it. So, but I'd like to be able to give our police department the authority to say, okay, yeah, I want to check this out. Just make sure it's on the up and
Well,
up.
they
You can always check it out.
still could check it out and
Check
ask
it
for
out.
their medical marijuana card.
So I would, personally, I'm in favor of the recommendation to ban that.
Okay.
Right? Now, the delivery, I'm going to take a chance on the state coming up with the proper regulation to make it right. So I would take that one off the table.
Yeah, I'm gonna reverse course, Cliff, on those 2. On those 2 bullet points, I'm gonna reverse course on that, as long as we get everything else in and send that to the planning commission. The caveat that on dealing with cultivation or personal cultivation, that we have a clause in there of some sort to where, I mean, we're not doing, I'm not saying we do an ordinance, but maybe we'd have to do an ordinance to prevent what has happened in the past from multiple caregivers getting together and doing grow houses. That, how would we deal with that?
I think that could be
Well, I'm asking the attorney.
alleviated
Yeah.
by crafting of a limit of whatever 4, 6 plants or 2 mature and 6 babies, however the state has looked at it or what other municipalities have done per parcel. And at that point, you could say that no one's going to have more than 2, 4, 6, whatever plants that is for a truly personal use in one lot. So you know that your neighbor's not going to be growing 10 plants or 40 plants.
But then what if you have 3 people that have a legitimate need
So,
and they each get, whatever, 6 plants?
Well, I mean, that's why I'm saying there could be something crafted that allows for personal use
Sure.
without it being overcrowding the lot or the home.
Well,
I have
that's
a
what-
suggestion.
Asking the attorney that, if the attorney could answer.
Under the new state law, once the state starts issuing licenses, then 1 year later, there is a phase out of the current structure of collectives and cooperatives. So, it's phased in over time. But what that would mean then is that you can't then do the sort of collective model, which has led inevitably in many situations, it sounds like a little bit within this jurisdiction, but certainly outside of this jurisdiction, to abuses that, where you have grow houses. Certainly the city could craft something along the lines that Councilmember O'Connell suggested, where you impose limits that go beyond the limits imposed by state law. And that's something that, you can send direction to staff to have the Planning Commission look at that and look at some options. And staff certainly can come up with some as a starting place, and the Planning Commission can look at that.
All right, so
Support that.
just one of these, I mean, this is the thing that kind of, makes me feel uncomfortable about the personal cultivation. And I mean, I don't want to take that away from someone, but here's, it says that those engaged in cultivation for personal medical use will not need a license from the state under the new state laws. And so, I mean, so there's no license, there's no regulation. At least that's how I'm reading
No,
it.
license, that's like for commercial, right?
Right, so there are 2 concepts. One is your medical marijuana card. So you would need a medical marijuana card either as a patient or as a primary caregiver in order to be able to cultivate for personal use. Otherwise, it is unlawful under state law
Still need that.
when you're talking about personal use. The license that is being discussed in the staff report are the business licenses that the state is going to start issuing based on the new legislation passed last fall. And those licenses are only being issued to medical marijuana-related businesses. If someone is growing for personal use, either as a caregiver or as a patient, it's not a business. It's for personal use. You don't need a business license.
I know, and that's my point.
It's still
is that
regulated.
Then, it's kind of unregulated, in a sense, the personal growing.
It's still you can only get a certain amount of plants.
So under state, the new regulation would require a medical marijuana card, and you get, I believe it's 100 square feet to plant.
And I understand, and I get all that, right? And so you can grow it and you can say, yeah, I'm using it for these legit purposes, but maybe they're not using it for the legit purposes, right? And so that's the risk that you run by not having the personal regulation, or not having the personal growing of the plant without any kind of license. Whereas if it's done on a commercial basis, then there's some pretty there are these guidelines that you can easily follow. The personal growing part is kind of loose.
So I have a suggestion, because I hear what you were saying, Madison. I appreciate your perspective, and about what you said about delivery, how, the state's already allowed this and we'd be taking it away and restricting it, for people to get marijuana. So I'm hearing that, and I think one potential compromise would be to allow delivery, but not to allow personal cultivation, because that way patients can still get the relief they need, but they wouldn't be able to grow it in their own backyard. And the only reason why people are doing that currently is because there is no other way to do it, right? So they have to grow it themselves.
No,
because
no.
I mean, they can't, it's not currently allowed.
Growing it in your backyard is the only way to do it without paying for it.
Yeah.
So it's the only cost-effective way.
But it seems to me
to
that
provide
growing
yourself with
it,
your own medication.
there's more potential impact, negative impact on the community with the cultivation, in people's homes or yards. That seems more obtrusive to me, and has more, impacts than the delivery. So if I had to choose between the two, I would be more willing to allow delivery. And then that, my thinking is that would still provide from, it may not be as cost effective, but it allows people to get the medicine that they need.
Well, it is definitely, and like I said, I've done a lot of research in the last couple weeks on this. And my searches on my iPad will show that. Medical marijuana is not inexpensive.
It's not.
A single dose for pain relief is $7 to $15.
And that's like certain kinds. If you're getting concentrates, that can run
And I'm
$40 to $50 to $60.
Will this be covered by insurance once the state allows it?
That's a really good
that
question.
I don't know. No, but because it's all cash business because of the federal banking regulations, which is what
Okay.
the state's
You
trying
know,
to
All right,
get
so
around.
really bogged
yeah,
down.
so far, so you decided that you were gonna, you're not going to go with recommending the banning of
Yeah.
personal cultivation.
Yeah.
You're gonna allow it now.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Madison, are you for that happening?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then Terry is too. Okay, so then, because I'm not, but three of you agreed to it. So, you know what, let's just go through this thing so we can kind of nail it down. So, one, we're fine. We agreed to banning that, and it's in the resolution. Two, recommends the council not amend the city's zoning ordinance to allow commercial cultivation in Brisbane. I think we can say, if we're already agreeing to the resolution, we're good with that as well. Three, we're going to take that off. That is the personal cultivation.
3 bullet point 1.
Yeah,
Bullet point 1.
right.
Two.
Okay, and then the delivery, we're also going to take that off. We're okay with that being allowed. And then 5, we are going to keep that in there. Dispensaries, we don't want them in downtown Brisbane or other parts of our city. Okay, and then item 6, the marijuana-related businesses in every zone.
Oh, okay, I'm going off bullet points. You're going
Yeah,
off
okay,
different
so we
numbering
go off the
system.
bullet, yeah, it's on both things. Okay, so 3,
So-
bullet point number 4. So that is one that we haven't discussed in detail. That's something that I had some issues with. Terry, you
I have
did as
issues
well.
with it only because I don't think that there's going to be, refineries going on, but I do think that research and development and testing, those kind of things are something that are going to need to be done for the medical marijuana industry, and that's what it's going to be.
What if we took out research and development and testing, but left the other things in there? Because those other things sound like some that we're kind of not really in favor of allowing already with the other points.
I'd like to hear from Clark and Lori reiterating. So are you okay with that? Are you not okay with that?
With Cliff's suggestion?
Yeah.
Well, this is, you mean, leave,
The ban would be on manufacturing, processing, warehousing, transporting, and distribution.
But not on
But not,
researching.
if there's research and development from one of our biotech companies, doing testing from one of our biotech companies, that
they
would be
can
fine.
research and develop it, but they can't manufacture it here.
Well,
Basically what we're saying.
when you're researching and developing, isn't that sort of
Manufacturing.
existing?
No, it's different. I mean, when you do R&D, in any industry, right? You do
Right, yeah.
Development.
You're right.
Doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna manufacture it
Yeah,
there. They can
yeah.
send it to a different site to manufacture,
Yeah, that's true.
so.
You know, I don't know enough about how this industry works to know how we can parse it out.
Yeah.
Well, I think this was a catch-all to try to catch everything that was ever marijuana related. And so that,
So you want to leave the R&D in there?
well,
I mean, take it out, in other words.
So it
You
wouldn't
know-
be banned.
Yeah, it wouldn't be banned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it should really be a matter of conditional use permit. I think research and development should be left in there, and anything else should be conditional use. You know, where we have control over what exactly they want to do with it, and that leaves us the control on whether it's a good use or an economic use.
So, so leave it as it is, what you're saying, but do it as a ordinance of conditional use?
We've had a little bit of blowback on some of the planned, or not planned development, but
Permitted.
Yeah, permitted uses.
permitted
for
uses
out at Sierra Point.
out at Sierra Point, where they wanted it to be much broader. Different developers wanted a broader scope so that, you know, nothing would be a restricted use unless it was animal testing, large animal testing. And because that is to make us competitive with South San Francisco, who doesn't have any restrictions on anything. You can do research on just about anything. And so that was a concern of a couple of the developers that wanted to extend their development agreements that haven't built. And so we were looking at ways to broaden the wording of what some of our permitted and unpermitted uses were. And I think this would just add a new caveat to some of those negotiations. So, I mean, I think that if we leave it as research and development as a use that is okay, but that, you know, and testing, and then the rest of it we could do as a
Conditional.
permitted use or conditional use.
Yeah, no,
If
that
it ever
makes sense.
came up, but
So
somebody
we'd
would
have to
have
do
a
a
good.
zoning, you're saying doing a zoning text amendment. Not necessarily banning, but making it a conditional use. Is that the proper methodology?
Yes, you would need to amend, whether you do an outright ban or whether you do a restricted use situation, you would need to amend your zoning ordinance, which means you need to go through the planning commission. So what is before you right now is whether to direct staff to initiate that planning commission process, and what general direction to give to the planning commission about options to explore. That would then ultimately come back to you with a recommendation from the planning commission based on this sort of general guidance that you would provide tonight or at some other point.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine with me.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And right now, any business is supposed to get a business license in Brisbane, correct?
It depends. It depends what type of business you have, what kind of business license would be required, and what would be required of you. Everyone's required to get a business license, but there are certain additional requirements for certain types of businesses. So the recommendation is to have staff bring back to you, to the extent that you're going to allow any businesses, whether restricted or not, that are medical marijuana-related businesses, to bring back an ordinance or a proposal to amend the business license ordinance to perhaps provide more than just the bare bones business license that would be required.
Yeah, okay. And so, just to be clear, so transporting and distributing a marijuana and/or marijuana products, so that's different than dispensing. Because that could mean something else.
Transporting is different than dispensing. Dispensing would be essentially retail use, and the delivery is a very specified type of,
Okay.
it's different under state law than transporting. Transporting would have to do not with transporting to the ultimate end user, but transporting along the way in the manufacturing process.
Okay. All
Means
right.
our freight forwarders couldn't have it in their warehouse.
Right.
Okay, so we passed the one resolution and we've provided guidance for the planning commission. Is there anything else that we need to do?
Might be clear as mud, but some guidance.
Okay, good. All right. So,
Motion
moving
to
on
Extend the meeting for
to 11.
11.
Okay. All right, item C.
Do you have a second?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item C, consider adoption of resolution number 2016-06, establishing guidelines for the selection of mayor and mayor pro tem. Staff report, please.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my staff report.
No problem.
Here. There it is. Okay. Apologize for that. The council recently had a study session with regards to establishing new rules for its council reorganization. The council directed staff to come back with a resolution that would establish a meeting prior to the annual reorganization meeting to facilitate discussion and understanding the upcoming year's rotation. That, of course, is an open meeting subject to the Brown Act. The goal of having all newly elected council members serve as mayor during the first term, and a goal of having the mayor pro tem selected as the next mayor whenever possible. In addition to that, after reviewing this, there was some additional language that I thought might be helpful. It's council's discretion on whether or not you want to do this, but items 4, 5, and 6 would be additional language that would just clarify the process, the rotation. So number 4 would be that after serving a term as mayor, that council member will drop to the bottom of the rotation list. Number 5 would be that newly elected council members will be slotted above the last mayor. If there's more than one elected at the same time, the one that gets the highest number of votes would be ranked higher. And then just put in writing that the city clerk will maintain the rotation list and will present that to the council annually, so you can, have an opportunity to look at that and make sure you believe it's correct. So with that, entertain any questions.
Anybody have any questions for staff? All right, so Clark, you had put forward those.
I like the 4, 5, and 6 also added to it.
You like it or don't like it?
No, I like it. I think it makes it more clear as far as guidance. And as we said in our meeting, that this is really a guide. It's not a have to, but it's good to have guidelines to at least, help us through a process in case it does get a little out there.
I think adding 4, 5, and 6 makes it much harder to be able to deviate if we need to. And when we had our workshop, we had discussed that this would be aspirational. And I think that adding 4, 5, and 6 really
Makes it not aspirational.
makes it non-aspirational.
All right. Madison, you have anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see 4, 5, and 6, honestly. But I do know, that Clay is really trying to make our lives easier in the future and kind of help us so that when we are trying to determine who will be mayor and mayor pro tem, that we have something to go off of. However, these items immediately raise all the things that I brought up in our session about the more regulations you have in the whole process of who gets to go when, makes it a lot more challenging when a council doesn't feel somebody is ready, or maybe they don't work well with others or play well with others, and they feel entitled to that role. It makes it harder, I think, for a council to appoint somebody else that they feel is a better fit. And then I think that, these guidelines are supposed to be here to help us get along better, or if, future councils get along better and avoid a lot of the things that have happened in the past, where people felt like they were passed over. But I think having these guidelines and having things be a little bit loose where you can ignore these, then would make someone have their feelings hurt even more, because they would point to this and say, well, look, I had the most number of votes and now it's my turn, and let's refer to the rotation list. So then I think that we're setting ourselves up for even more disappointment, which would then lead to a council that wasn't able to function well in the coming months, because there is some negative feelings that are harbored because of how it went down. And that's what we've experienced in the past, and that's why we're talking about this now. So I just think that those 3 bullet points, while they're trying to help us, I feel like they're going in the opposite direction of the concerns that Terry and I brought up in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like it without 4, 5, and 6.
Well, I heard 3, but I disagree. I think it makes it more clear.
Yeah, no, I think
So
it
I
makes it
disagree
more
with everything
clear,
you
too.
say on that, on regards to 4, 5, and 6, but I hear 3 that do agree, so.
Okay, so then, here's the thing.
I'm sorry to be such a pain in the butt
So
tonight. I'm so sorry.
If you're, if you're that newly elected council member, and we all agree that it should be a goal that that person should have an opportunity to serve during their first year, and then 2 new council members are elected at the same time, so how are you going to choose, right? At least this gives you.
Who's best for the job?
Well, I think traditionally, right, we've had a system. We can't ignore that. We try to allow somebody the opportunity to be mayor in their first term, and we have respected a rotation, but it hasn't been something that's been solid. And so I think that can still be maintained.
Yeah, and we can still, in our discussions, look to the number of votes, but it's not something, that each person received, but it's not something that's set in stone.
Right.
Going into this, I thought having these rules would make it clearer, but then after we had our study session and talked about it, I agree with Madison that it sets us up more for disappointment if we feel that somebody who would be next, we don't feel is ready.
Okay. All right. So if this is where we're going to
All
go
of
with
it's
that,
speculative.
then I'll be fine.
It is. The whole thing. whole thing.
There could be a situation, right, where you could have 3 council members who decide, right? You can say that we'll all be fair and nice to each other, but that might not happen.
Right.
And so by having things, that, with some guidelines that are in writing, and it doesn't mean that it's set, but at least it gives you some guidelines. We could be like Daly City if we wanted to, and just have 3 people decide who's going to be those folks. But
Our voters pay attention, though.
I hear you, but
Our voters pay
that's an
attention.
example.
You know what, I'm ready to move forward. 'Cause
All right,
I don't think
so-
we're gonna convince one way or
No,
the other.
you're right.
In saving some time,
So-
let's just move.
So,
Let's go with the
yeah, so-
resolution as it's currently written then.
With
problem
one
with that?
correction.
Oh,
on
pro
spelling.
tem and pro temp, yeah.
okay.
On spelling for the pro temp.
Where's?
on
Whereas
the-
number 2,
Whereas number 2.
yeah,
Mayor pro tempore.
It's not a temporary position, it's a.
pro temp.
It's actually mayor pro tempore to be,
Right.
Oh, really?
yeah, it is.
So maybe the P is okay?
Okay.
Well, then we correct it
And
throughout the
and we're
document.
truncating it to mayor pro tem.
Ah,
Yeah, Michael and I worked on this together, and he thought it was mayor pro temp, and I corrected it to mayor pro tem, but did not catch that one thing, so.
It is mayor pro tempore.
Well, we could put it spelled all the way out. I mean, I could
But we
spell it,
truncate it, so.
Okay.
right.
So then the resolution as written
With the corrections.
okay. So I'll have a motion for that.
I think I made a motion.
Okay, do we have a
I
second?
second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, staff reports, please.
Given the hour, I'm going to be very brief. Just a reminder that Tuesday night, the Coyote Workshop will be here at City Hall. And then also, we have a potential conflict for the May 5th City Council meeting. It's the city attorney's annual.
March 5th? May?
May 5th.
Way out there.
Yeah, it's out there a few months, so I mean, I can work with the mayor on the schedule on it, but just to let you know that the city, we won't have a city attorney available that night because they're having their league meeting during that period of time. So I'll work with the mayor and if we can, we'll just cancel that meeting and then go to the following meeting. If we need a meeting, then we'll try to set something up.
Okay, so and both of our city attorney and the deputy city attorney are attending that?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
You guys are having a party, are you kidding?
There's an annual conference for city attorneys. It's a great way to make sure that that you're up to speed on all of the new issues that present. It's a continuing education, but it more important than even getting your continuing education, it's a ability to make sure that you're apprised of updates. It's a very effective program, and it's offered once a year. It's a 3-day program, and it alternates Northern California, Southern California. This year it's in Southern California, Newport Beach, I believe, and it's Wednesday through midday Friday. We have offered, if need be, one of us will fly back up for it and miss the rest of the conference, but if the council is amenable to either moving it, we can be available earlier that week or the next week. It would be greatly appreciated.
I mean, normally when we have this much lead time, we can work around a meeting. And that would be my preference in terms of, just makes it easier to schedule rather than trying to move around to another night.
Okay. All right, so,
One other item, just, I sent all of you a note in my weekly report about the San Mateo County has given us direction that they want to change the location for the elections because of a disability problem with the community center. And so the elections will be held actually here in this room. And they'll be, for the first one, will be up and coming in June.
I was surprised to hear that is it the ramp is too steep to be handicap
Yeah, it's just
accessible?
general disability, just general access issues, yeah. And they didn't pick on us. They went throughout the county and looked at different sites and stuff, and ours was one of them they identified as a problem.
Okay, it just seems that it's more accessible for our seniors and other people with mobility issues than here, but
Yeah, I mean, it's something we're very used to, and it's centrally located, so I'm sure we'll do our best to make sure people understand the change, and we'll probably have somebody there at the.
and is this election going to be a vote by mail-only election, or is that process done?
For now, that's done. It won't have anything to do with any presidential or primary presidential elections. So.
Okay,
Just the guinea pigs.
oh, it's not,
Not done.
June isn't a presidential,
It's a primary,
It's primary. Oh,
no.
presidential primary.
right, that's what I thought.
County primary too.
County,
Yeah, it's California biennial primary, which in this case includes the president.
okay. All right, countywide assignments, subcommittee reports.
I have one. I attended last week the library JPA for Lori, and we passed the budget. And we also passed lowering the reserve from 20% to 15%, which was the equivalent of $1.1 million. And they moved that 1.1 million into capital reserve, basically, for the fund stuff, when they need it as it comes up, And that's it.
That's good. When I sat on that board, they were having budgetary issues, and it's good to hear that they decided that they didn't need the same amount of reserves.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending that. Did they talk about the branding at all?
Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah, sorry, but about, rebranding San Mateo County Library's system, coming up with a new type of logo and stuff. And one that was kind of agreed upon was a multitude of arrows going in different directions in a circle that would be a, kind of input, output type of thing. And it would say San Mateo County Library. It's just a new logo. That's the rebrand.
Yeah, and they're also trying to just remarket the library system as more of a place that is not just used for books, but for other resources
That's
as
good.
well.
Right.
So it's a whole rebranding, remarketing campaign.
Like a resource center.
Yeah.
And have they, as a quick question, have they given any more thought to the donor funds, donor cities? Has that gone anywhere?
I don't think that was on the agenda for this past meeting. I know there's a subcommittee, and that's still, I
We
believe,
didn't
being
discuss
discussed.
that.
Yeah, that was going on back when I was on that one too.
Yes.
All right. Any other subcommittee reports?
I had one.
You and I, Madison.
I think you should do it.
Okay, so we had a housing subcommittee meeting, Madison and myself.
Affordable housing?
Meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, and so we, just, talked about, different opportunities to provide affordable housing in Brisbane, and, just kind of, rekindling that, and, understanding that it is a major issue, not only in the county, but it is an issue in Brisbane, and it was brought up today about lack of senior housing. Got a long waiting list at the senior housing facility that we currently have, and it'd be nice to to build some, and look at also workforce housing on some of the lots that we own, perhaps partnering with the school districts. Or with the school district to perhaps include them in workforce housing if we don't have enough employees that would be interested in participating.
It was very interesting to learn. I've studied workforce housing before, but it was always something that intrigued me. So we had a representative from, remind me the name of what was that?
Oh, yeah, she's from the Housing Leadership Council.
Right. And we were talking a lot about something that the community college district had done for their employees, and looking at how they set that up and the type of revenue that it brought in, and how it led to 40 people being able to purchase a home, and how they set that up. So we had a lot of discussions about whether Brisbane would be the right fit for that, and whether we should be looking at that type of affordable housing and how that would work. And so just a very interesting discussion. We had a lot of community members there. So it was very informative and interesting, just looking at all the different types of affordable housing, the way that you can construct it, right? You have Habitat for Humanity, but you have a lot of other programs too. So that was a really, really great night.
Yeah, it was. It was very productive. I think we were there for a couple hours. So
Right. And there was a lot of community feedback, which was also great too, and we taking all that into consideration. So really just, I think, a meeting where we're kind of just exploring options and talking about things and how they would fit or not fit within Brisbane.
that's correct.
That's great. And I just wanted to also mention, not the affordable housing issue, but the rental market issue. I don't know if you all got the invitation for the town hall on Monday that Congresswoman Spear is having. I think I saw your name on the list.
Yes, and
I'll be attending,
yeah,
but-
actually, I have to take my name off the list.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Her daughter has a gymnastics meet at Arizona State, and we're going to be attending that.
Okay.
So,
Well, I
That's
plan on
fun.
attending, and I think we
But I am in
we got
support
an
of
email back
having
from Brian
discussion about it.
Perkins, or from some staff person, saying that they have like over 250 people who they're planning
Wow.
in attendance. So, they're hoping it'll be a very good discussion. They actually had to cut it off because so many people signed up to attend.
I was gonna say, I should go sign up for that, but
You
I
can
guess.
Well, you can. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah, I
that
could
the-
go.
not
Yeah, the
like
waiting
elected
list.
Yeah.
officials, but just for the public.
oh, for the public.
Yeah.
Well, where is it going to be?
It's gonna be in
held?
San Carlos at, some church. I think
Okay.
it's at 7 o'clock on Monday, the 22nd,
Cool.
so
Yeah.
I'll forward you the information.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of cities, well, I'd say a lot, but there are a few cities that are looking at rent stabilization, which is rent control.
You got 60 seconds.
San Mateo and, Pacific. So, not that, that's been an issue with our citizens speaking out about it, but I know that's been an issue with some folks who have, lost their units.
Mr.
All
Chair,
right.
did we just want to make sure everybody on the council understood we were doing a survey of the employees for the workforce housing?
Oh, that's right, we decided to do that, just to see what the pulse is of interest.
See if there's any interest, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so, written communications,
I had a subcommittee report, but in the
Oh, I'm
interest of time, I will skip it until next time.
okay, good. Written communications, we had the letter, the report letter, so we're good there. Talked about the schedule. No one's in the audience for oral communication, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Meeting.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.